The voice of sharing. Durian ASEAN.
Hi, good morning. This is Arlene from Durian ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing. Today we are going to read a couple of news from Southeast Asia under the top 10 ASEAN news. We start off today with China News Asia from Singapore. It's a news about Singapore's wanting to beef up its nuclear technology expertise. So the 10 years Nuclear Safety Research and Education Program was announced on Wednesday by the National Research Foundation, NRF. So for a start, 63 Singapore dollar of funding will be set aside for the program for the first 5 years. There are now only a handful of nuclear experts in Singapore, actually. And as such, the NRF also hopes to train some 100 scientists and engineers in this area in the next decades. Actually, what they are really hoping is by about 2024, that these scientists and engineers will be expert in these three areas, namely radiochemistry, radiobiology, and risk assessment. So just to give a scoop on radiochemistry, it is a study of radiation in the environment, such as in the air, water, and soil. Uses include detecting the presence of radiation in imported goods, such as seafood. While in radiobiology, scientists study the impact of low-level doses of radiation on humans, which while those in risk assessment will study in the activity of nuclear reactor in what to do if things go wrong. So when it comes to nuclear technology, I think what comes to our mind usually would be the destruction and World War II and atomic bomb. But actually, nuclear technology is beyond that. In fact, it can be used for greater purposes. As said by Professor Law Tek-Seng, CEO of the NRF, said, "This is important because as a nation, we need to build up capabilities in nuclear technology. For one, nuclear technology now pervasively used in many different industries. Two, nuclear technology, nuclear energy is something that we need to be aware of. And that's true. Nuclear, as we said earlier on the three different areas of radiochemistry, radiobiology, and risk assessment, these are areas to detect early signs of nuclear technology, the presence of radiations in goods and even in humans, and also the study of activity of a nuclear reactor. So the program is a good move by the Singapore government. And also, the NRF said that the program is part of the plans for Singapore to keep abreast of nuclear technology development. Yeah, I think in all Southeast Asian countries, I think we should know what is the development of nuclear technology, and it doesn't necessarily has to be for the wrong purpose. It can be for a greater purposes. And the next one, we have Chicago Tribune. So, possible Malaysian plane debris washes up on Australian shore. This is interesting because Australian authorities said unidentified material washes up in the coast of Western Australia and is being investigated for possible links to missing Malaysian airline flight MH370. Well, the thing is like that. The Australian and Malaysia vow to keep searching for a missing Malaysian plane despite no sign of wreckage after almost 7 weeks. That would be equivalent to probably 40-something days. And as bad weather again, grounded aircraft and undersea drones near the end of its full missions. So the finding of that unspecified material on the southern tip of Western Australia was first actually reported of suspected debris in weeks, and the first since the detection of what were believed to be sign off on April 4th. So the Malaysian and Australian government are under growing pressure, in my opinion, to show what length they are prepared to go in order to give closure to the grieving family of those boarding the MH370 flight. And in fact, talking about the debris, unidentified debris, the Australian police have secured the material found 10 kilometers or 6 miles east in the town of Augusta. The Joint Agency Coordination Center overseeing the search said in a statement. But no description of the material was provided, and Malaysian officials say that they have not verified the report. So we just have to wait and see whether the debris really belong to the missing flight MH370. The next one, we go to Washington Post. So the news paper reported that Vietnam sentences American man to death for heroin. So the state media said a court in Vietnam has sentenced an American to death for heroin trafficking. The Liberated Saigon newspaper said Jason Dint, 41-year-old, was convicted of trafficking of 1 kilogram or 2.2 pounds of heroin at a one-day trial by Ho Chi Minh City's People Court on Tuesday. Well, the paper said that Dean was arrested last June after the custom officers found the heroin hidden in his underwear as he was boarding a flight from Ho Chi Minh City to Australia. And in fact, through the report stated that Dean was hired by an unidentified man to carry the heroin for $30,000. Court officials were not available for comment on that Wednesday. And just to give a context, Vietnam has some of the world's toughest drug laws. When possessing or trafficking even 100 grams of heroin will carry the sentence of death penalty. So in comparison, in fact, in most Southeast Asian countries, including Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia, the drug law are pretty tough. So this is something that if tourists, if you go to this region, you have to bear that in mind. The next news is by BBC News Asia. As we reported yesterday, U Win Tin had died, and he is a Myanmar Democratic veteran, and yesterday it was reported that thousands or hundreds mourned his death. So, a founder of the National League of Democracy (NLD), U Win Tin, served 19 years in prison for his opposition to military rule in Myanmar, formerly called as Burma. And released in 2008, Win Tin was seen as a close aide to Aung San Suu Kyi, but also held the power to disagree with her. He actually died in Yangon Hospital early on Monday morning after suffering from heart problems. Talking about U Win Tin and his background, he's actually known for speaking his mind and not being afraid of criticizing members of his own party, in particular those he saw as being too referential towards Aung San Suu Kyi. In fact, Human Rights Watch Executive Director Kenneth Rose said Win Tin's death was an irreplaceable loss for the Southeast Asia nation. In fact, a couple of days ago, Malaysia also bear our loss of Kapal Singh. He was the DAP. He was one of the head in DAP and has done a lot in terms of ensuring the check and balances in our country. And he also is known for someone who is very principled and speaking his mind. For U Win Tin, it was said by the Human Rights Watch Executive Director that his bravery in the face of cruel hardship continues to echo through Burma's fragile reform process. And now, regarding on the NLD, the National League for Democracy, the party now has a small presence in parliament, and its key focus is the general election due in 2015. The next news, we will focus on Cambodia. So, military medical experts share knowledge in Cambodia. Sailors with 3rd and 4th Medical Battalions joined Royal Cambodian Army Forces members to participate in a subject matters expert exchange during Cambodian medicals exercise 14 to 1 March and 17 to 21st of March at Phnom Penh, Cambodia. While during the exercise, medical personnel from both nations shared lessons and techniques, focusing on the role of medical personnel in providing support during humanitarian assistance and disaster relief efforts. For the participants listened to the lectures, they also took part in groups discussion, executed hands-on training, and the exercise ended with a HADR scenario to test the participants' ability to rapidly respond to large number of casualties. Each part of the exchange encouraged teamwork and feedback. I personally believe that the exercise, in fact, will strengthen the relationship between Cambodia and the U.S. and help personal development response plan for potential disaster. In fact, said by one of its participants, it is a good opportunity to learn and teach lessons with the U.S. We will take all the lessons learned and use them for future planning. There is one very positive development in Cambodia, having military medical experts to share knowledge to the other experts in Cambodia. The next one is by sunstar.com. It's about anti-Obama protesters clash with Manila police. While Obama, just to give a background, Obama is having an Asia tour. He will visit a few countries within Southeast Asia, and one of it will be Malaysia as well. And regarding on the anti-Obama protester, the police armed with truncheons, shield, and water hose clashed on Wednesday with more than 100 left-wing activists who rallied at the United States Embassy in Manila to oppose the visit by President Barack Obama and a looming pact that will increase the American military presence in the Philippines. So riot police blocked the flag-waving activists near the heavy fortified embassy compound, but the protester slipped past them, sparking a brief scuffle in view of the motorists stuck in traffic. And we believe that Obama visit is not a symbol of friendship, but a signal that U.S. planned to reoccupy the Philippines. He will meet with his puppet Aquino to push for measures that would further tighten the U.S. economy, military, and all-round control over the country. And this statement was said by Roger Saluta, Secretary General of Labour Center Kilusang Mayo Uno, one of the group present in the protests. And during the protest itself, the police sprayed the protester with water from a fire truck to push them away. And in fact, a police officer was punched in the face by a male protester, but no arrests were made. Some of the protesters even carried paper U.S. flag with a message, "Obama, not welcome." Funny protester. Personally, I think by allowing U.S. to establish de facto military bases all over the country. The Aquino government is further attacking the interests of the Filipino workers and the people. And that's true because it's not just the people, but having a military base shows that the Filipino government is not independent enough to exert its own power for its own self, that it has to have the U.S. power to base their military base there. So in that essence, is the protest is definitely a justified protest, and it's definitely something that President Aquino needs to look further forward in understanding the sentiments of the Filipino people. Again, by the Australians, this time is about Labour, who will support efforts to repair ties with the Indonesians, pledges Tanya Pilbasek. She said that, I made it clear to the Indonesian Foreign Ministry that Labour would support in a bipartisan way in any effort of the Australian government to restore the relationship to its normal close footing. In fact, our relationship with Indonesia is too important for us to let the friction drift on for months unresolved. We still don't have an Indonesian ambassador in Australia. This is something interesting. I didn't know about it. So they are trying to mend their ties and work on the relationship with the Indonesia nations. And in fact, during Tanya 2 days visit in Jakarta, she also held talks with President Foreign Affairs Advisor Hassan Wirajuda and 2 other ministers, a degree of bilateral contact unusual for a BOT minister since the relationship fell into crisis in November. For the Australians, their main purpose was to build Indonesia contact that she hopes to be dealing with in opposition and as foreign minister when Labour returned to the government. In fact, Tony Abbott, as opposition leader, promised a steady stream of his ministers who would travel to Indonesia, but the flow has severely restricted. The next one, which is the last news, will be by our Panama News Malaysia. So again, it's about Brunei. The Brunei Sultan points out challenges for ASEAN. Yesterday, Brunei news was it was yesterday and the day before that, the Brunei news was filled with news about Sharia law and eventually the delay of the implementation of the Sharia law. But this time, the Brunei Sultan Hassanal Bolkiah on Tuesday underlined the challenges of Association of Southeast Asian Nation, which is ASEAN, that will face and ways to overcome them during his opening speech at the 34th Singapore Lecture on the Future of ASEAN. And the Sultan, who is on a 3-day visit to Singapore, said that in the decades to come, Southeast Asia will have to face more challenges and difficult compared to the present day. In fact, he also noted that the challenges in economy and political balance towards Asia and the emergence of medium and major powers in the regions are creating changes in relations among countries and impacting strategic contexts of the region. During the visit during his talk at the Singapore Lecture on the Future of ASEAN, the Sultan also expressed concern over a host of issues, including ongoing territorial disputes in the region, and this would include the maritime disputes between China and Philippines. So it is vital for these issues to be solved through dialogues and peace initiative. That's all for today for our Top 10 Southeast Asian News, and you are listening to Durian ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing. Continue to listen to us next for Blast from the Grassroots.